Welcome back, Truth Seeker. Wednesday, March 26, 2025, Nancy Pelosi's birthday, a big advocate for gun control, and the reported conservative Supreme Court did rule in favor of gun control for ghost guns today. The lead opinion was written by Neil McGill Gorsuch, the first Supreme Court justice installed by Donald Trump back in 2017 on April 7th. And I just want you to see how Georgetown Prep this was. Again, Georgetown Prep is where a lot of the current Supreme Court studied. Of course, that is the prep school for the nation's first Jesuit university. But you can see in the article that this was related to what Trump signed on February 7th, a date that can be written 7/2. Today's decision was a 7-2 decision advocating for gun control for ghost guns, and this was upholding Biden-era legislation. A reminder that from one Jesuit boss to the next, I'm talking about from Biden, who's Jesuit-educated, to Trump, who's Jesuit-educated, there's really no difference. The political parties are an illusion. They both serve their same Kabbalistic masters. But again, this 72, big number with the Jesuits. That's why we got the first Jesuit Pope on the 72nd day of the year. Again, in Gematria, President Trump, like Jesuit order, equates to 72. Keep in mind, Gorsuch, who wrote the lead opinion, graduated from Georgetown Prep in 85. This ruling comes on the 85th day of the year, also on Nancy Pelosi's 85th birthday, who's Catholic, Jesuit educated. And, of course, the Jesuit motto, Isus Hominum Salvator, equates to 85, just like Georgetown Prep equates to 85. Sure, you remember the Brett Kavanaugh thing where we had to go through that big saga about what he might or might not have done to a young girl at Georgetown Prep. 1985 was obviously 40 years ago, and today's ruling was on ghost guns. And again, Gorsuch graduated from Georgetown Prep 85 years ago. Today he writes the lead opinion on the undermining of the Second Amendment regarding ghost guns, which equates to 40. Again, if you're new here, this practice of coding numbers into words comes from Kabbalah. It's very simple. It's also very obvious that the Jesuits implemented this system at the end of the 16th century, syncing up the calendar with the language, and they've been performing these kind of rituals across the world, especially in this nation, from the end of the 16th century up to the present. Been documenting this every day for over 11 years. Today has a lesser date numerology of 54. If you run the alphabetic order the other way, Jesuit order equates to 54, like John Carroll. John Carroll's who established Georgetown at age 54 in 1789, a few months before George Washington became the first recognized president. For the record, George Washington was 57 at the time, like Georgetown equals 57, like Rome equals 57. In case you're new here, this code is based on the alphabetic order forwards and backwards. So in reverse, Jesuit order is 72. When you run it forwards, it's 54. And it's kind of like how the Jesuit headquarters is at the Church of the Gesù, building 54 in Italy. Also, it was pointed out in the article that the court is considered conservative with a 6-3 conservative majority. From Georgetown's establishment anniversary, January 23rd, to today's ruling was a span of 63 days. It's the 63rd day of Georgetown's age. When you run it in reverse, John Carroll's also 63. And let's see, the screenshot right here. The last time the court visited this issue, it was a related matter. It was a 5-4 decision. Today's a 7-2 decision. Again, just so you can see this ritualism. And keep in mind where these numbers start to make a lot more sense is the Jesuit logo's the sun. The word S-U-N with the most simple cipher, just using the alphabetic order. A is 1 up to Z is 26. S is the 19th letter. U is the 21st. N is the 14th. Sun is 54. The sun moves 1 degree on the astrological wheel every 72 years. Again, big numbers used with the Jesuits all the time. That's why we got the first Jesuit Pope, Pope Francis, on the 72nd day of the year. Paris equals 72. The Jesuits were created in Paris, France. Thus, Pope Francis. In the article, they bring up how this ruling will make it so that all ghost gun packets that are sold, they will have to have serial numbers on them. And it's a reminder that in 1968, that was the year that the federal government ruled that serial numbers had to go on guns so that the government could keep track of all legally owned guns. And recall, that was the year that MLK was assassinated, as well as RFK. MLK, who assumed the name Martin Luther after the Protestant Reformation leader, Martin Luther. Again, Martin Luther wrote the 95 Theses in history. The Jesuits were created 201 months later. MLK was killed on the 95th day of the leap year in 1968, and the nation's first gun control came 201 days later. If you're new here, the Jesuit order equals 201, huge number with their rituals. Pope Francis is the first Jesuit pope, the first to live in Suite 201. His birth name equates to 201, just like the founder of the Jesuits, Ignatius Loyola, equates to 201. Anyway, I bring up the 201 because when the bill for putting serial numbers on ghost guns was first introduced, it was the 201st day of 2022. Well, the 201st day of the nation's age. January 20th, which can be written 20/1. That's the 201st day of the U.S.'s age each year. Again, there's a reason Inauguration Day was moved to the 201st day of the year in the Jesuit stronghold, D.C., because they run the nation. But, yeah, I just wanted to track the history of this and just how perfectly coordinated it all is. Just reminding you again who's running the show, who's undermining your rights and liberties, and who's also mind-controlled the populace so that they don't look into anything, and they also don't care that their country and the concepts it was founded on are being completely undermined. There's very few people in this country that have the will to oppose tyranny from within. Most people think the idea of, the concept of protecting yourself from enemies, foreign and domestic, with emphasis on domestic, most people think that's a total joke, even though that's what the founders gave us the right to do. They gave us a First and Second Amendment to protect ourselves from enemies, foreign and domestic. And again, your federal government, whether you cheer for one party or not, is your enemy. These people work together to undermine your rights and liberties, to make sure you're taxed cattle, to make sure you're used and abused and lied to and mocked every day. And that's what we're about exposing over here. And there's very few people in the world willing to expose any of this. There's a lot of people that are willing to participate in the game that is the two-party system and take a side because there's a lot of advantages to doing that. Just look at the people, for example, on YouTube that get millions of views a day and are making pay cuts from YouTube for $100,000 a month just by playing this political game, making nonsensical content. Meanwhile, a channel like yours, truly, always deleted, censored, undermined. You'd be lucky to make $100 in a month with a channel like this. And again, that's the thing. You go against the cabal, there's a lot of consequences. You play their game, there's a lot of reward. It's called selling out. It's called selling your soul. It's called being part of the problem. But yeah, that's not what we do over here. Over here, we expose what's really up. We're not part of the two-party lie. And one of the few people exposing who really runs the nation. So many people, you take the Bryans, the high-impact Flicks of the world. He does speak a good game against the government, but he's totally misguided in terms of who runs the show. He thinks it's the small hats. It's not. It's far from it. Again, there's none of their symbolism on the, really in the nation's capital anywhere. Meanwhile, the symbols of Rome are everywhere. Everywhere. So we'll leave it there for now, Truth Seeker. And until next time.